Let's move this over here just for jollies. It's not too bad. Kind of can see the whiteboard over there, but I'll have to write big. How's the visuals doing? Can people see and hear me? Audio and video check. Muy bino, huh? Okay, David. Okay. Yeah, Eva is snoozing on the couch. She's she had kind of a long day today. Had to wake her up at 7:30 in the morning to get to the treatment at 8. And then we had a long time waiting and this and that and the other. And we probably didn't get home till 2 o'clock, somewhere around there. And so she was able to get quite a bit of sleep at the hospital, though, during waiting for and getting the infusion. So I don't know. Her body is, it's obviously under a lot of stress with all the treatment and stuff. So I presume the sleepiness is pretty normal. Hey, James West. I'm wondering who is behind the AI silver guy, the Asian silver dude, and wonder who it is and what's the motivation. Well, Rob Bob, it might be because I'm just using the old style straight with the YouTube algorithm. I mean, the YouTube thing. Eva handled the other software package that we were using, and she's zonked right now. Hello, John. So, as I say, she's snoozing peacefully at the moment. Blame YouTube. I don't know. It's always the guy's fault, right? Always blame the guy. Yeah. Wow. Either way. Hi, Mr. Virtue. So I got even less done this week than I did the week before. Been busy with Eva. And also got no new samples to work with. No new laboratory results until today. So I just got samples today, just got laboratory results today. And sometime in the next few days, I should be getting some zinc wire that I can use to test the wire dip, detection method, and see what happens. Man, I should have got that. Let me check something real quick here. Hold on. Let me see what the solution was I used for the testing. Huh. Okay. The two solutions I had that I was testing with the copper wire, one was 8.28 part per million. The other was 9.06 parts per million. And interestingly, the one that had a little higher concentration seemed to get a little less results, i.e., it didn't seem to show up as heavy as quick. Could be because of other stuff there. But both of them were relatively easy to detect. So we're getting below 10 parts per million detection limit there. And I'm going to have the zinc wire here shortly. And solid zinc, David. It appears likely to me that the zinc wire will lower the detection limit. Two reasons. Number one, I think it'll react a little bit more vigorously. Number two, it's going to show up the gold better than copper does. Copper being pretty much a yellow metal, I think it's going to be harder to see the same result on copper that you would with zinc. I'll basically take solutions side by side, the exact same solution, and put, copper in one and zinc in the other and see what happens. Yeah, I'm not sure. Hi, Ricky. I'm not sure who Asian guy is, and who's behind him, and what he's doing and why. He's clearly trying to, increase the value of silver. He's pushing the price is going to go up thing pretty good. But I don't know what is actually. So we shall see what we shall see on that. It's Eva's belief that there's a whole lot more paper silver than real silver. And so if people want to really get silver, the price is going to have to go up. Gosh, Silversmith. Forget your real name. My brain's not working too well. I'm not sure if it's clickbait and ads money. He doesn't have a whole lot of views. He's new. He's running a lot of different channels. So I'm not sure what the motivation is. I don't think it's just views. Okay, I don't think that's it. I think he's trying to shape the situation in some way. I don't know who's being Brian. That's your name. Sorry about that. Eva says that the entity behind it, whoever it is, person or group or whatever, monitors the silver sub on Reddit because certain things they're posting there and stuff have either been duplicated and or elicited a specific reaction. Okay. For example, they asked, who is this person? And they got a name back. Okay. Whether that's the correct name or not, I wouldn't bet on it. Is it close to $100 an ounce? Last I checked, it was at 76, and it's been pretty stable today. I say the Asian guy is clearly AI, although it's a very good AI. There's other things I'm seeing now that some are pretty confident are AI, some I'm not absolutely sure, but they're getting pretty good with the AI. So it's going to be harder and harder to tell what the truth is. You know. So I say it's kind of hard to tell what the real situation is. Clearly, the Shanghai silver was running quite a bit more than the COMEX for a while there. You know, like a week or two is running $5 to $10 higher, which is extremely unusual. AI Asian guy was saying, this is really indicative of certain things, which maybe not. I'm not enough of an expert. But as far as I know, China has indeed locked the doors for refined metal going out of China, in that they've implemented some pretty stringent controls. And if the Shanghai price was in fact, let's say $85 right now, and COMEX was 75, then it would put an arbitrage in there where somebody could literally buy silver in New York and sell it in China, make $10 an ounce. But now the silver would be in China and ain't necessarily coming out of China. So to me, the whole situation smacks of another instance where China is trying to corner the market on something. It did it on rare earths. It did very specific actions, which were very specifically intended to create a very specific response, and they achieved it. They cornered the market basically and refined rare earths. I think that so to me, it's possibly another orchestrated plan by the Chinese government to suck silver into China so that they can hoard it and dribble it out at whatever they want, whenever they want. So that's kind of my guess. I really have no hyper confidence at this time. I do think the price of silver is going to go up because the demand for silver ain't going down, and the demand has exceeded production for what? Every one of the last 5 years? Can't last forever. Oh yeah, there's some good silver mines up here. So we shall see what we shall see on all that. Right here. Oh, one thing I was able to determine, I had some unknown concentration Eco Goldex solutions that had gold in them. Didn't know exactly how much. Wasn't expecting it to be very high. So I took 1 liter of each solution and put some max water resin in it and bottle rolled it. And at 24 hours, I took out samples, and at 48 hours, I took out samples. And what I found was that in 24 hours, the solution concentration went from basically 9 to 1 part per million. But then it stayed at essentially 1 part per million for the next 24 hours. So all the absorption occurred essentially in the first 24 hours. So this part of this is to determine what's the contact time needed? And unfortunately, it was only 10 parts per million. So I'm going to have to basically repeat the test, but with a much higher concentration. But that was pretty much 1/5/26. Yeah, it should. What did I do? I thought that's what I did. Sorry, Rock. This is really, really early. You got the wrong date. Ah, well, I can always fix it later. Yeah, Sakura. How's it going up in the frozen north there, Rock? Says December 5th. Oh, okay. Yeah, I got the right year. I just forgot the right month. Anyhow, so I'll say that's what happens when Eva's sleeping. Oh, but I say it looks like at low concentrations, 24 hours contact time is plenty. Might be a whole lot more than needed because I don't know when it went to 1. But say it stayed at 1 for 24 hours after that. What are we seeing here? Mr. Virtue. Hello, Gene. So that's interesting data, but it's not terribly definitive in the context of what exactly do we have to do in the actual mill process. It is my thought, because it didn't go below 1, which indicated to me there's probably some kind of equilibrium reaction going on or something. So if we want to get it down there to the single digits or the low single digits, we may have to do a 2-stage resin and pulp, or basically, let's see, it's going to be a little harder. Let's say you've got your cement mixer and you've digested your batch already. It's already been digested to this point. Then you add resin 1. Do it. Then separate resin 1 out and add resin 2, which is brand new. And then roll it again. And then you got resin 2 here, and that's tails. But then on the next batch, you use resin 1, resin 2 here in place of resin 1. So you got lightly loaded resin that's being put to the strong solutions. And then when you're done with that, where you've reached the equilibrium there, then you take that more heavily loaded resin out and put in some brand new resin and start loading it as a scavenging phase. So let's say that may be a way where we can get really good recoveries without too much trouble, because it's technically and physically quite simple to separate the resin from the pulp. Just a simple screening. And that will, maybe allow us, let's see, what are we talking about here? Calculator. Hello. There you are. Okay. So if we have, we're planning for about 100-pound batches. Might have to go a little bit smaller than this. If we had a 100-pound batch, that'd be 300 pounds of, or call it 150 kilograms of solution times somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 milligrams per kilogram. So 7,500 milligrams, there's 7.5 grams of gold. But now, if that drops it down to the 7 or 8 parts per million range, then let's see, 7, that would be 7. Let's see, let's say 8 milligrams times 150 kilograms. Come on. Oh, that's still a gram of gold in the scavenging. So I think it would be probably worth it if it scavenges pretty effectively compared to what a single pass with resin would be. Why using active carbon as a final filter in water filter container with the gold X as the primary. What would be the primary filter? I'm not sure. Yeah, the activated carbon or the resin will both work, theoretically. I haven't tried activated carbon with the Eco Gold X. Theoretically, the resin will have a higher loading factor. It will also, in a carbon in pulp method, you're going to have less attrition probably, So that's why we went with the resin. I have not tried the carbon. It would theoretically work. I'm not sure how you would strip the carbon. Standard method of stripping carbon is hot cyanide solution. I don't have any hot cyanide solution. So I say it's one of those deals where we got this that works, but it's not necessarily ideal. I will, accept that without question. But in order to ascertain whether or not it's a better than another system, you'd actually have to test them side by side. So what's the final resin to gold payout? Okay. We've got a 4-stage filter out at the mill here, where we had 4 resin cartridges in sequence. Seemed to work pretty good. Let me go back to you, Honey Bunny. Resin to gold payout. One of the things I'm trying to ascertain right now is the loading factor. I am pretty sure that when Rock Butcher did his not AA, XRF on our resin, he got somewhere around a 4% loading factor. And with the carbon and pulp, we've been getting about a 1% loading factor. The Max Water resin is currently running $25 a pound. And 1 pound would therefore hold 4.5 grams. Calculator, where'd you go? Oh, that's annoying. There it is. So we got 4,400 divided by 31. Currently about $140 a gram. So $140 a gram times 4.5. $630 in gold for every 25 pounds of resin. About 25 to 1, 4% cost. I'd like to get this up higher. It may just take a higher pregnant solution grade. And we shall see as I do more stuff. Now that I got more samples, I have no idea what the grade is on those samples either. It might be better, it might be worse. Have no clue. I can get samples sent out to Hiddle. Okay. Okay, concentrate difference is linear. Diffusion limit is logarithmic. Makes sense. It's going to take longer to get in deeper. And again, these are the sort of things that I'm trying to figure out what the parameters are and what's the best way to do it. Say right now, if I can spend $4 to make 100, I'm not stressing at that. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not necessarily looking to make more money for less, but it doesn't stress me out. Right now, speed is important, so I'm trying to get a practical solution, not an optimal solution at this point. And say if we were to get 4%, it'd be a lot better. I mean, let's see, at even a 2% loading factor, 0.02, seems much more likely to be attainable. Times 454 equals 9 grams times 140. Yeah, that's $1,200 for, $25 worth of resin. So again, it gets us in a functional environment with loads of safety factor. So that's the basic idea right now, is to get going and start recovering money. Right now, there's 3 things they're working on to improve production. Number 1, ore grade. They're establishing access to another zone of the mineralized area that historically had better ore grades. So that's what they're establishing right now, and should be ready to start going here by the time they get back after New Year's. So that will be highly beneficial. Not planning much on the gravity separation front. Trying to get the sulfide cons, where we're processing those, we're leaching those. If they can get higher grades, then those might go up 5-6 ounces per ton for the cons, which would be pretty good. I mean, if we had the stuff we got was like 200 parts per million, let's go 300 parts per million, 300 milligrams per kilogram times 50 kilograms. So that'd be 15 grams a day times 140. That'd be $2,000 a day. That would pay all their expenses. Hey, Sarah. And so that would do good. The other question is, how much are they losing in the tailings? Using a number from a previous sample, we actually had assayed at 2 parts per million and 8 metric tons per day. 2 milligrams times 8,000 kilograms a day. That would be 16 grams times 140. That'd be over $2,000 a day going out with the tailings. And so we're going to put a priority too on getting some of that VDR mat in the outfalls of those tailings discharges to see how much we might be able to recover in microfine gold and sulfides. Because if we can recover even half of that, again, that's $1,000 a day. So that would be a tremendously helpful. That's the three things we're looking at right now. And if we can get it to the point where they're comfortably profitable sometime in the not too distant future, one option we're exploring is they might, if we can find a bargain property in a useful area that preferably is not hugely expensive and for some reason is selling at a discount. For example, it needs repairs and remodeling. Okay, well, I can do that. But they might purchase that property and then we could stay there and work there, where we could have perhaps a decent sized shop and lab and things like that. So these are some of the things we're looking at, but money, opens up all the options. You got plenty of money, you got plenty of options. If you're barely skating by, you don't have nearly as many options. So that's the focus right now, is to get this thing making money and a comfortable amount of money on a very consistent basis. Yeah. So, as we shall see. Hopefully this month there will be some breakthroughs. The tailings, the leaching of the sulfide cons, and improving the head grade. Okay. Each one of those things is likely to happen this month, and you add them together, it could just change the whole complexion entirely. Hello, Shaggy. No, it's not cheap. But anyhow, that's the basic. I don't even know if you call it a plan. The idea. That's what we're shooting for. That's the target. Okay, that's kind of the goal. So that's why I want to try and get these guys as profitable as soon as possible. Okay. The owner of this property here is trying to sell it. So our what do you call it? Our security, that we're going to have a place to stay here, is totally up in the air. So we shall see what we shall see. But anyhow, that's the basic plan. And that's why I'm working so hard to get them to where they got something that will work with each one of their streams. Clearly, on a longer term basis, leaching of the tailings would probably give you better recoveries. But on the other hand, depending on how much gold is actually entrained inside sulfides, that becomes a serious question. With the regrind and stuff we're planning on the concentrates, that becomes less of an issue. So we shall see what happens there. But I'm hopeful that things like that. And then again, theoretically, this summer we'll be out over by yonder, 30 miles from here, with Jeff Kablock working on some of his stuff. We shall see what we shall see. So, let's say that's kind of our situation, and I'll try and keep you guys informed on stuff. I say, if sticking zinc in Eco Gold X solution will allow you to get a pretty good lower detection limit, hey, that could come in pretty handy. It's even easier than a spot test. Well, you're most welcome, Dark Cortex. Nice to see you here. We keep a little community. You notice I'm not monetized or anything like that. Part of the reason is so that when somebody shows up like you just did, we can pay attention to them. You know, they can ask questions, we can answer them, etc. I've seen a lot of channels where, like on a live stream like this, it'd be impossible to keep track. What is your general region, Cortex? Say, like Sarah, when she first showed up, she had some questions. We were able to answer them. I'm not trying to make money off of electrons. I want to make money off of mining and like that. West of Turkey, over in the Caucasus in that area, huh? Interesting. I just saw somebody had a video this week that I watched. Kazakhstan? I think somebody said he was from Kazakhstan. I don't know. I thought it was an interesting video. He was making do with very low-cost methods that were nevertheless effective. And I mean, it wasn't low tech per se, except as where it was required by the financial constraints. But it was pretty interesting. I had got some interesting ideas and stuff from him, and so that was cool. I enjoy that. So I say, but that's why we keep it small. You know, it's right now we've only got, what is it, 19 people? I don't know. I believe it says 19. That's hard for my eyes to make us either 19 or 0. But anyhow, so that's why we do it the way we do. Qpelling will make it a little easier to get a complete gold recovery. Usually, if you got real fine gold, you're going to want to go to some kind of leaching system. And the one I'm using right now is probably going to be hard for you to get and stuff, and it's not entirely non-toxic either, the Eco Gold X. But I will be working on other chemistries shortly that will hopefully be better. Aqua Regia has some serious shortcomings when it comes from extracting from gold ore. Okay, first of all, it's expensive. If you got any kind of limestone-like minerals in the ore. It's going to consume the aqua regia extremely rapidly. It's going to get very, very expensive for that. And then you still have to get it out of the aqua regia. So that's why you never see production mining using aqua regia. It's hard to handle. It's very expensive. And it just doesn't work out economically nearly as well as a lot of other things. And that's why they don't use it. I'm trying to figure out what other things work under what conditions and how to make them work. Clearly, sodium thiosulfate has been used a lot in the past, but the chemistry gets a little more complicated than cyanide. Cyanide is fairly simple chemistry. It works fairly predictably. It has a couple problems. Yes, it's quite toxic if you don't handle it properly. It can be handled safely if you know what you're doing. It's like gasoline. Gasoline can cause real problems real fast if you don't handle it right. That doesn't mean nobody can use gasoline. Okay? But regulatory thing, that a lot of places, they just don't want you to use cyanide. So we're working on other things instead of cyanide. So the one we're planning on Central America, that's the project we're working on right now. That's the one I've been talking about tonight, is down in Central America, down in Nicaragua. So we're using a chemical called EcoGoldex, which uses something called sodium ferrocyanide, which is vastly less toxic than sodium cyanide. However, it is not non-toxic, and if you add acid, you're going to get cyanide. So there's some problems that you can run into with it. Yeah, you can use wheat flour for adding carbon. Absolutely. Nothing wrong with that. When we're assaying here, when we're smelting things, we generally use charcoal because my wife, who's done most of the assaying, likes it better than flour. You need less of it. It's more concentrated. But either one will work. Actually, Sarah, are you talking manganese or manganese dioxide? I've heard of manganese dioxide as an oxidant. I've never heard of manganese as a reducing agent. I imagine it would work, but flour is usually easier to get a hold of. So, I say for a reducing agent, I'd go with flour or charcoal. It's easy to measure, easy to handle, and as Honey Bunny points out, it doesn't add any contaminants that don't just vaporize. But the aqua regia, I say it's going to have its limitations. Cortex. It's just not the simplest thing to use by far. When you're dealing with refining gold concentrates or extracting gold from electronic parts or things like that, sometimes it can work just fine. When it comes to digesting gold out of ore, usually it doesn't work very well. Okay. The problems are much greater than the benefits in almost all circumstances. Now, if you can make a good quality concentrate before you throw in the aqua regia, that might work out all right. Yeah. Well, I say aqua regia, it's going to take just a lot just to wet the crushed ore sort of thing. So you're going to have to start with pretty high grade to begin with. And then you still got to get it back out of the aqua regia. And the usual method for that, is precipitation with like sodium metabisulfite. I don't think you have to neutralize the aqua regia before you do that, but I don't recall. And I'm pretty sure if you're using stannous chloride, you do have to neutralize the aqua regia. The word is basically destroy the aqua regia before you can get anything out of it. Yeah. And yeah, besides aqua regia has a nasty fumes. You can dilute aqua regia a substantial amount, like 4 or 5 to 1, and still have it dissolve gold quite well. It doesn't have to be full strength at all to dissolve gold. So you can take that into account also, Cortex. But yeah, you won't find a production mine using aqua regia, and that's why. Yeah, an MD20 can see some pretty fine stuff, but hard rock gets a lot finer than that. Absolutely. If you look at some of the videos I have, both my hand panning method and some of the sluicing, we've just using a VDR mat in a regular sluice. Once you've pulverized the ore, we were getting good recoveries down to 500 mesh, which is pretty small. How do you describe the size of particles, Cortex? Do you use mesh sizes? Do you use microns? What's the unit you guys usually use? This is the wrong. We were getting good recoveries sluicing pulverized rock down to gold sizes in the neighborhood of 37 microns. Okay. Which, if I'm not mistaken, is about 0.04 of a millimeter. Yeah, I say we were getting good recoveries down in excess of 400 microns, down about 500 microns. It appeared we were getting things like 80-90% recovery. So if your gold is that coarse, you can consider what I would call a quality gravity separation instead of a rough one. Tables work fine. They're just really expensive. In our case, we were classifying simply because the impact mill I designed blows the powder up, and therefore if the particles are too big, they fall back into the mill and get beaten up again. So I was running a product. The crushed rock was running probably 90% passing 80 mesh, and as I say, we're getting down to 500 mesh gold. Now, I don't know how much experience you have in gold mining, but every hard rock gold ore is different. You can have the stuff that we were processing that I'm talking about here, or we got it from what we call top of the hill. It worked fine with a gravity separation. we're getting pretty darn good recoveries with just a gravity separation. On the other hand, the stuff where we call Montana B, not so much. The gold, and we had some very fancy testing done on it, but 80% of the gold by weight was less than 6.8 microns. Okay. It was just way too fine for a gravity recovery. So you'll need to test your ore first to find out what the particle size of the gold is. And you can do that in a number of ways, but one of the ways is, say, first, have you seen my videos on how to hand pan microfine gold? If you haven't, I would suggest that you do that. By taking a sample and hand panning it 3 or 4 times, you can get most of the pannable microfine gold. And you just do that several times, and then the tailings from that, you send that off for an assay. Then you'll have a good idea what can you get with gravity and what do you need to use something else for. Okay, so that's important. Making a line. Yep. It would depend on the particle shapes and a few other things too. In my experience, which is not, definitive, somewhere between 400 mesh and 1,000 mesh is where you start getting just ridiculous losses to the point where it's like you want to do something else. On the other hand, it's not uncommon at all for a particular ore to have 50% of the gold come out fairly easily by gravity. If once you've pulverized it, you get the gold by gravity, then you can stockpile the rest for now while you build up. The gentlemen in Nicaragua are getting the majority of the gold via gravity separation. Okay. But we've got some serious losses. If you start at 16 parts per million, 16 grams per ton, half an ounce to the ton, and you process it and you get 70% of it. Okay. So you start with 16 times 0.7. Okay, so you get 11 grams per ton. But that also means you're losing, 4.8 grams per ton? 4.8 times 140, you're losing $672 a ton going away. Well, that's not something to be happy about. But it's not unusual at all to find out that your best bet is a combination where you've got a gravity circuit and a leaching circuit. Because the kind of gold the gravity circuit recovers best, coarse gold, is the kind of gold that the leaching circuit does worst on because it just doesn't dissolve very fast. So by having 2 circuits, each one of which does what the other one is crappy at, you get a pretty good overall recovery. Well, in terms of too fine, again, that's very much ore dependent. You have to run your tests to see what is the proper amount of grinding to get optimum recovery for that particular ore? What is the healthiest cupelling metal choice? Good question. I use lead and good ventilation. And I don't stay in the lab while I don't actually have a real lab. I got a shed. But I don't stay in there. If you have an excellent ventilation hood, it's not usually a big problem. Lead will work fine. I know bismuth has some limitations in what it does. Um, so I think that good ventilation is probably effective for what you want. Cupelling is not what you want to do to recover gold from rock. It's a refining technique where you take something that's got a pretty high gold concentration and purify it. I can't tell you, Cortex, definitively which one is better. Okay, I won't lie. I use lead because I can. It's something that I've got. So that's what I worry about. But in order to figure out what's the best way to get the gold out of your particular rock, you actually have to run some samples. You have to do some tests. The first thing that you're going to run into a problem with is crushing it. If you don't have some kind of good method of pulverizing your rock fairly fine, life is going to suck seriously. So even just for samples, okay, it just takes forever to get it ground up really fine by hand. Now, there's a number of different ways you can do it mechanically. For sampling, they make little attachments for a hand grinder. They make little impact mills, little chain mills like this big, things like that. So there's ways of doing it. But if you don't have a method of finally pulverizing the rock mechanically, I suggest you focus on that. Because without doing that, the rest of the stuff becomes impossible to do. You can't get a good gravity separation if you can't pulverize the rock. Do you have any method of mechanically pulverizing the rock at this point? I agree with both the incognito and solar Smith tube there, Cortex. Well, the question is, what are you trying to do, uh, Cortex? If you're trying to take big rocks and turn them into little rocks that you're then going to pulverize, a jaw crusher works fine. If you're trying to pulverize rock, a jaw crusher is much too coarse. Okay. You'd be better off on a small scale of breaking the rock with a hammer and then throwing it into a chain mill. Okay. And so that's the thing. They do two different jobs. It's like, which is best to clean a dirty pan, a scraper or soap and a scrubber? Well, it depends on how thick the dirt is. In this case, how big is the rock and what are you trying to do to it? You say, if you're a hobbyist, I would not worry about the jaw crusher. You can easily do it with a hammer and go with, depending on your capabilities and the price you want to expend, make some kind of a chain mill like they make little ones that go on a rock grinder, which is good for small samples. Okay, it's not good for any kind of even small production, but it allows you to test this much rock and see what gold is in it. Aside from that, better to go up to a chain mill of about this size. Okay, and they make them out there, or they're really simple to build. You just have a shaft and a couple of pieces of chain that are hanging from it. And as the chain gets beat up, you just take them off and put new ones on. Okay. Not thermite, thermal shock. Heat it and cooling it, and it'll break stuff. A post pounder in a bar, that works for real small samples. I say I've done that. I've done the dolly pot sort of stuff, and it's very time consuming and tedious. Okay. Even something as small as a Cobra crusher is vastly more productive. Okay. And so I say they have little crushers that fit on a grinder that are, I don't know, what are they, $300 or $400? Already built. You just clamp it on there. The K&M mill was what, 2,000 or 3,000, but you could easily make one for a small fraction of that. It wouldn't be that difficult to do if you're minimally skilled at welding and fabricating. You don't have to be super fancy at it. So, but yeah, if you're gonna do hard rock, you're gonna need a pulverizer. Okay. Jaw crusher would be the second thing you get. Okay. Because pulverization is the real time consuming part. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Well, I don't have a t-shirt, but I could have one printed up if I need it. Steel ball tumbler. As a general rule, I'll get to you in a second, Cortex. A ball mill is very challenging for small samples. It really doesn't work well for small samples. If you're grinding up 50 or 100 pounds at a whack, that can work just fine. As a matter of fact, the ball mill, the little ball mill that the guys have down in Nicaragua is almost ideal for that kind of situation. And we will use it for that, and I'll show you some stuff. But it's one of those deals where for sampling, ball mill's not the best way to go. For production, depending upon what you're trying to accomplish, the ball mill is a very efficient way of pulverizing rock. Energy-wise, wear-wise, it's very efficient. And they do a fine job under certain circumstances. Other circumstances, not so much. And the main thing is, in general, a ball mill is big and heavy. It's not very portable. So if you want to do small samples and you want something you can move around at all, then a little impact mill is much easier to do that with. But a ball mill for a production setting, it is more efficient at turning rock into powder. Absolutely. So it depends on what your use is. When you start with even making in order for a ball mill to work, the balls have to fall a certain distance and be a certain size and stuff. So your minimum ball mill is bigger than a bucket. It's going to be probably 18 inches in diameter, absolute minimum sort of thing to work well. Then you got to get, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I go down to Home Depot, I don't see a bucket of steel balls laying around either. It's not the easiest thing to find. You know, you can use a rock tumbler, but again, it's a matter of a logarithmic scale. You know, if you were taking a tack hammer and trying to break a boulder, it's going to take you a long time. It's a lot easier with a sledgehammer. So when you're dealing with a rock tumbler, it's not going to grind the rock very fast. You know, secondary stage for micro gold, for recovering it or for pulverizing it, John? Yeah, weight is 5,000 pounds. Yep. And that's, say, ball mills work great. They're big. They're heavy. And then you still got to get the balls. You know, but a ball mill will turn a lot of rock into powder fairly efficiently. You can use hard river cobbles instead of balls. Absolutely. That's a solution that Cortex might be interested in. You can also take, well, if you took a tire, you know, like a truck tire with what they call a split rim, where it's got a ring and two-part wheel, and you were to put stuff in that tire, put the rim together, and then run the tire on an axle, that would work as a ball mill too, for a while. You're going to wear out the wheel after a bit. How many pounds per hour, Brian? I don't have a lot of direct experience with ball mills. I've never worked in a mill that used ball mills. I've seen them and I understand the basics, but there's a lot of difference between seeing a guy drive a car and driving a car. You know? I know, but how many pounds per hour did it grind up, Brian? Yeah, I say if you got the skills, you could build stuff. But, and another thing you can do is you could take something like a drum and line it with rubber, you know, the treads from tires, you know, just cut just the treads and cut them the right size and stick them in there and make a wear liner for it or something like that too. Three-quarter minus to pulp in 2 hours with river rock, about a quarter ton a batch. Okay. So 500 pounds in 2 hours, 250 pounds an hour. That's reasonably good throughput. 100-pound propane tank. Kind of small. It would last for a while. 100-gallon propane tank would be better. I mean, 500-gallon? No, it's 100-gallon. That'd be 600 pounds. You know, the kind of thing you'd set in place by a trailer or something like that instead of anything you move around by hand. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways things could be done. The big boys do it a particular way because they need throughput and they want low operational cost, and they're not nearly as worried about capital cost as we are. But small guy, you got to worry about how much is it going to cost you to put it into operation, and how much are you going to get before it wears out and such. That can make a big difference. Michael, I agree. If you can buy something that'll work right off the shelf, especially if it's something you can get used, like say a propane tank that was a bit corroded or something, so it doesn't meet the specifications for a propane tank. They're like retiring it. Yeah, if you beat that up in a year or two, well, get another one. I've been 1 mile down. Yeah, that's a long way down. I presume the ventilation was pretty good. I hope you're getting some ideas, Cortex. So this is what happens when you get a bunch of small scale miners together. I'm presuming you mean basically a mile in as opposed to a mile deep. If you're going to go a mile deep, you're going to have an operational shaft. The deepest I've ever been was 2,700 feet down a shaft. I say if it's an operating mine, not a problem. Buffering like mad, huh? Anyone else seeing a lot of buffering? Or is it going okay? Where I was at, it wasn't too bad. San Manuel mine, didn't actually know what the rock temperature was there. At the Church Rock mine where I used to work at about 1,700 feet, it was about 90 degrees. Not bad. The one that was 2,700 feet was down San Manuel, north of Tucson there. That was a big underground mine. Yeah. Yeah, that's not a bad production speed at all, Brian. That's not bad. Not bad at all. And if you're going to be leaching, the ball mill is not as much to worry about as if you're going to be doing a gravity extraction. Because if you're beating the gold particles to death, it makes them hard to gravity separate, but it works fine if you're going to leach them. Anyhow, yeah, it can make things float and do stuff like that. It depends on what you're doing with it. If you're just leaching it, the finer it is, the quicker it leaches. But the finer you grind it, the more difficulty you have clarifying stuff too. Filtration becomes impossible. Well, I'm pretty sure Honey Bunny is. I've got a little Vevor kiln. There's a 110 volt one. Apparently, they stopped making them. I think they have replaced that with a 110 220 volt kiln. And Lauren has ordered one and it should be in next week. So when it shows up, we'll see about getting over there and checking it out. Okay. Well, something's gone wrong, honey bunny. But I'm not sure. The Vevor kiln I have is 110 volt kiln, has been working essentially flawlessly. I really like the design, etc. I do not know for sure how durable it is, but it's been working flawlessly so far. Nice, incognito. Yeah, I'm not sure what the price of silver and gold is going to be here in the near future. I have a feeling silver is going to go up for reasons of supply and demand. Gold, I think, is going to go up because of geopolitical instability and such. You may have noticed things are a little complicated out there right now. But yeah, say it's interesting out there. The news hasn't been boring the last week. It's just I haven't had a whole lot to do. Now I've got some new samples. Yeah, sounds good, incognito. I'm not overly impressed with Gold Rush. Okay. Any other questions or anything at this point? I say I didn't get a whole lot done this week. I'll be getting a whole lot more done next week now that I got samples and stuff. But I should be more refining the parameters that the guys down in Nicaragua need to operate under. Yeah. Good for you, honey bunny. I'm glad. As you guys may have noticed, Eva was wandering about earlier. How are you doing, little one? Just asking how you doing? Everything going okay?
As well as can be expected. Monty ate.
Really?
I'm pretty sure Monty ate. I don't see him else. Oh, and they gave me the wrong pill. They gave me 60 of the thing I already had 30 of.
Well, he probably. Those are the.
This isn't extended release. This is immediate release.
I know. You're going to be hurting for a while, girl.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying the extended release are not here.
Not at all?
No. I got my estradiol. I got the immediate release. And I got my anti-nausea.
Huh. Okay.
We'll take this to him tomorrow and show him what I got.
Yeah. Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. Get you through the day. Yeah. For those who are just showed up or whatever, that's very few, but Cortex is one of them. My wife is quite ill right now, and she's undergoing some treatment, so that makes life thing. Incognito says, hi, Eva. David Villa says, best wishes, Eva. Yeah, everyone's giving you best wishes. Yeah, Honey Bunnies, hi, Eva, etc. Everybody's said hi. She's not that motivated to appear on camera right now. The treatment is doesn't improve the countenance, unfortunately. Yeah, she is, Rob. it's controllable. There's a lot of complications when you get radiation to the head and neck, and so there's lots of issues. She's pretty tough. I don't think I'd be handling it as well as she is, but it affects salivary glands, taste, swallowing, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so she's got a lot. I appreciate all the prayers and best wishes and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Well, he's working hard to, you know, uh, minimize the unpleasantness, but he can't minimize the damage. The radiation is just going to do what it's going to. Thing. She's doing a good job of staying hydrated. She's continuing to eat and stuff, even though it's a bit of a chore. But I say she's very disciplined. I'm very proud of her. And if needed, she's got a port under the skin of her chest right now, make easy access to the veins, basically. And so if she does get dehydrated or whatever, we can take her into the hospital. They can hydrate her. But she's keeping close eye on that. She's a little OCD, which comes in real handy right now because she's keeping track of everything and blah blah. And it's like, great, that's perfect for what she's going through. But as they've got a pretty good support team over there. I'm quite pleased with the whole cancer team. Say, and so I say it's she's only got, what is it, 8 days, and she'll have her last treatment done. She's already got you there, Michael. Absolutely. As I say, she's on top of that. She's not drinking plain water. She doesn't normally anyhow. So it was pretty simple. She used to drink a lightly flavored water with sodium and potassium chloride in it that she put in her. Basically, she calls it keto aid. It's like kind of her homemade Gatorade. The flavored water became too harsh, too painful to drink, so now she's just using plain water with the light salt in it. But yeah, she's doing real well under the circumstances. I say I'm proud of her, and I'm getting more and more comfortable that she's going to make it through this okay. She doesn't drink alcohol, David, but as I say, she's hanging in it. She's sleeping more than usual, quite a bit more than usual, but it seems to be a healthy sleep. It's just her body trying to recover instead of complete exhaustion or whatever. But you can hear her voice is changing and stuff as the damage accumulates, etc. She's doing magnesium gluconate, I guess, more than the chloride. Glycinate, whatever. But yeah, I say she's keeping close eye on everything. The protocol involves getting a blood test every week before the infusion, and part of that is to they check all the various blood cells and stuff. They check kidney function, liver function, electrolytes, the whole 9 yards. So she gets a real thorough blood test once a week. Keep track of it. Rock Butcher says hi. And so they're monitoring her, and she's been doing just great. I mean, they're very, very pleased at how well she's tolerating this. I'm not terribly pleased at what she's going through, but she seems to be dealing with it okay. So anyhow, that's the situation with her health. Next week, the treatment will be almost over. The week after that, she should have about bottomed out. And then the week after that is when theoretically she will start getting better. But the projection is she's going to continue to encounter worse and worse symptoms, and then maybe start getting a little better. And it will probably take her quite a few months to come close to what you would call fully recover, assuming there's no complications, which of course, considering the damage that's done, her immune system somewhat compromised this. She can get infections, she can get thrush. There's a number of possible complications, but so far she's been doing a great job of avoiding them. Nope, she could not do that. Her mucous membranes are burned, radiation burned. Okay, so yeah, she can't even take the equivalent of a flavored water. It's that uncomfortable because it's got carbonation, a little bit of citric acid and stuff. I'm getting mad. Okay. You know the PO box, right, Honey Bunny? You can always send something to the PO box. I'll just put it in here. There's the PO box. You know, and so I say anyone can send anything to that at any time. You know, get well cards, a crystal, anything like that will be fine. That's why we have it. It makes it, you know, we maintain our privacy and just give it out like crazy. But anyhow, as I say, hopefully next week we'll be to the point where it's like this is just about done with here, and we can worry about healing. But yeah, still got a little ways to go. I'm proud of her. She's really being pretty tough. Okay, incognito. Let me see if I'm just checking something else real quick. I'm pretty sure this was yours. Is this the box? It came from Tootle, Washington. Okay. Is that you? Thank you, Mr. Virtue. If that is you, Incognito, the answer is no, I haven't yet. It's I'm going to have to get out to the ranch to run the RC46. Good. Thank you. I now got your name, well, your handle on here so I know who it is. You wouldn't believe how bad my ability to remember names is nowadays. It's kind of scary. But thank you very much. And say we'll get that ground up when we get next chance we get it out there. So anyhow, sweet. I best way to call it a night, I guess. I just did. What do you think about this channel? Altina Vessi 1? Can you check, please? I presume you are talking to one of your friends, Cortex. I can see your message if that's what you're asking, but I don't think it is. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. You want me to check out that channel. Altina. My eyes are getting kind of old here. Let me. BCISI. One. Okay, I got it written down. I will try and get to it as soon as we're done here. And is that your channel, Cortex? And I'll be happy to take a look at it when we're off here. Oh, I gotta text Jared about some stuff too. He sent me those samples, but they aren't cleanly marked. So I'm gonna have to call him up. By the way, whenever you're doing samples, make sure you mark the bags to where you'll be able to understand later. You know, guy from a village in Bulgaria. Okay, thank you, Cortex. Appreciate it. And but anyhow, that's why I write things like a descriptive. It's not like sample 26. No, it's like head grade. You know, then the date, something like that, so that I can look at it 2 years from now and go, oh, I know what that is. You know. All righty. Why don't you post, Honey Bunny? So, as I think we'll call it a night, and I'll go check on Eva and stuff. But happy prospecting and keep it safe out there. Thanks for coming. See you all next week and update you again then. End stream. End stream.